Here's former Vice President Kamala Harris calling out Donald Trump's weaponization of the Justice Department during an exclusive interview with MSNBC's The Weekend, our own Eugene Daniels.
And what we see is that the rule of law is very much under attack by this president, who thinks that the Department of Justice is his personal lawyer and is basically subverting the will of the people around constitutional safeguards.
Joining us now is former CIA Director John Brennan. He is now an MSNBC senior national security and intelligence analyst. He's also one of the president's legal targets. In July, the Justice Department acknowledged it had opened an investigation into Director Brennan.
Director Brennan, thanks for being here.
Thanks for being with us.
So I think specifically about the Eastern District of Virginia and the fact that this is an office that has historically been focused on terrorism cases, national security cases. What is the cost of their being focused on anything other than the actual threats to the homeland?
Well, I think there are two main costs. One is the opportunity cost, that they're not pursuing the cases that they need to pursue, whether it is something related to terrorism or counterintelligence or one of the things that's really threatening our national security, because the Eastern District of Virginia, as you said, has been the basis for, carrying out some of these, indictments and pursuing justice for it. But the other one is that it's undermining the credibility of the Department of Justice and the Eastern District of Virginia. If Donald Trump sends in his personal lawyer to be the acting district attorney, he really is sending a signal that he's going to be politicizing that office. And again, that office is just so important and so valuable in terms of our national security. And so again, an opportunity cost that's lost, but also undermining the credibility and the legitimacy of the indictments that they're going to bring forward. So I think it is really just raising some serious questions across the board.
You have this ongoing effort to raise those questions. Quite honestly, it's deliberate. I mean, they want to create the tension and the confusion within the organizations that that stand up the pillars of law and order and justice and public service and all of those things. I've asked you before, Director Brennan, specifically about the agency that you once led and the impact that this has had on them at that time. Now I'm broadening that lens out a little bit further and looking at the system-wide deconstruction, the wholesale firing of federal employees indiscriminately, the shutting down of the federal government. To Alicia's point, creating these levels of disruption that in the face of what we see happening right now in the Middle East. I mean, I don't even know how there's a plan to really carry this out when you are doing what you're doing in State Department, CIA, other intelligence agencies that are going to be critical to the success of the plan the president just, with Bravo, completed, at least phase one. How does the rank and file members across the government look at this and go, why do I go to work tomorrow? Well, they can't right now. But, at some point, how do they get back into this in a way that helps the country?
Well, I think they're worried to a person about what it does to the mission. As you point out, all of these agencies and departments that try to keep this country strong and safe domestically, but also allow us to do what we need to do internationally. If we don't have those federal workers who are going into the office, and they don't spend more than 8 hours a day, the federal public servants are the ones that really believe strongly in this country. And if you have an administration who is, as you say, deconstructing that federal government, the so-called administrative state, it really hollows out the ability of this country and this government to be able to deal with these domestic issues. And I've talked to so many people who are leaving the government or have left the government, but also what I'm finding, talking to college students across the country, they're wondering, why should they even think about a career in public service, going into the Foreign Service or going into the FBI or CIA? I think they really are now very concerned that the public service that they thought was going to be part of their professional career is no longer the public service that they thought, because it is being politicized and weaponized, and it's really, really quite unfortunate. And I think a lot of people around the globe are just looking at this country and looking at the government saying, what has happened to the United States? And we're all asking that question.
The vice president kind of spoke to this very thing in that interview she did with Eugene Daniels. Let's play another clip.
I think he has a vengeance campaign, which is I think really exposing the petty nature of who he is and his deep level of insecurity that he feels that he has to use the power of the federal government and the United States Department of Justice to go after people who have disagreed with him, or as prosecutors who have used a combination of the facts and law to prosecute him.
You know, I don't think her calling it a vengeance campaign is hyperbole. To me, it feels like that is now the administration's governing philosophy, if you will. Like, that's the ideology around it. Retribution is no longer a symptom of what's happening. Retribution is the system.
It's hard to understand why he feels that he has to do this. He has such enormous power and influence, probably more than any recent president. You know, the Republicans have the House and the Senate, and he has a real stranglehold over the Republican Party. And so why is he squandering this opportunity, you know, trying to divide us? His insecurity keeps coming out every time, including today when he was talking in the Knesset, you know, just condemning his predecessors. Why does he have to do that? He could be somebody who could help heal this country. I think everybody is hoping that he's going to change course, but he repeatedly continues to go on this vengeance tour, but also to condemn and criticize people who came before him, people who tried to do their best. But yet he still has this insensitivity, insecurity that he is just, you know, reacts to this. And, you know, I'm sure the psychologists out there, you know, are really looking at the
Maybe they're having a field day.
Yeah, why does he do this? He doesn't need to do it.
You made an argument earlier that I thought was very astute, which was connecting sort of the campaign of retribution that we've seen here at home and a question about whether or not, as Donald Trump positions himself on the world stage as a person who can bring peace in various regions, if those things are inherently in conflict with
Right.
each other.
And I mean, I want to be very clear. The ceasefire is a very big deal. The hostages coming home is important. It's been 2 years, and finally they have come home. I can just imagine how their families are feeling. But we do not have a peace deal yet. We haven't seen any pieces of paper. We haven't seen, like, where's the plan for the Palestinians? And it just made me wonder, Director Brennan, how can the same government that is targeting critics at home, how can they credibly be trusted to negotiate and bring peace and justice abroad? How? Those two things seem disconnected to me.
Well, it just shows the enormous influence and power of the United States, because the United States had the ability to actually forge this deal. Yes, Donald Trump, you know, pushed Netanyahu, thankfully, finally. I think it could have been done before. But he was the one who did put pressure. This was the same deal that they could have had a year ago.
So
I do, yes, but I do give them credit for the achievement, as you said today, releasing the hostages and having the exchange of prisoners and so on. But, you know, the ability to actually carry this forward and to move it ahead. I don't think Donald Trump understands the magnitude of the challenge going ahead. This was important, and I don't think we should take anything away from it. But there needs to be continued focus on trying to make sure that all of the ingredients of that 20-point plan are going to be moved forward. When I think about what's happened to Gaza, you know, and all of the destruction that's taken place there, it's going to be quite a lift to be able to make sure that the security is going to be in place, that the construction activity, that the funding, the finances, other types of things, these are all things that have to happen. And so I'm hoping that Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner are going to continue to stay focused on this, because it's going to take a lot of work.
My concern, Director, is that Gaza becomes, for Donald Trump, nothing more than a real estate transaction. The way the talk, when you go back and you read the reporting from about Mr. Kushner when he was in Gaza back in early January of 24, talking about the great waterfront property that is Gaza, that's my concern, because the rest of this plan, whatever phase it is, has got to deal with the Palestinian people.
Absolutely. It's long, long overdue. And the United States, many administrations, I think, have not pushed this issue as they should. Donald Trump, unfortunately, was spiking the football today. There was no touchdown. We received the kickoff. Right. And there's a long field to go forward. And it's important. That first step, those first steps aren't critically important. But there's a lot of work to be done. And I'm hoping that Donald Trump is going to use his influence, going to continue to put pressure on Netanyahu, because the Palestinian people deserve self-determination. That's right. They deserve statehood. It's been too long, and the crushing blows that they've received as a result of the last 2 years really need to be addressed in order to make sure that the Gazans have a future for them.